Thank you to Akiflow for sponsoring a portion of today's video. So a couple months ago, I made a video on how to basically assess for yourself what career might be the best fit for you. But after that video passed, I realized I still have a lot of thoughts and I still want to respond to some of the things that you guys brought up in the comments. So in this video, I want to give you some questions that you can ask yourself if you want to gain even more clarity on what the best possible career is for you and help you troubleshoot a bit if you still feel like you're not quite getting the answers you need. Hi, welcome back. I'm a doctor of psychology and also an author. If you're interested in reading my books or taking my relationship skills course, which has over 4 hours worth of content, check that in the description box. I want to start by asking you some questions, so definitely jot them down if you have a piece of paper, or if you feel comfortable, I would love to see your answer in the comments. Question number 1. What is or was your favorite class in school? Question number 2. Imagine you're 10 years old and you're at your grandparents' house in a small town where you don't know anyone, you're staying there the whole summer, you don't have internet, you don't have TV. What would you love to just do all day? Question number 3, what would you do today on a special fun day? You know, if you had like an extra long weekend, or it was your birthday, or for some reason it was just a day that you could celebrate and do whatever you wanted, what would you do? Question number 4, what task doesn't feel like work to you? And question number 5, in what situations do you feel completely in flow? Activities where you can just completely throw yourself into them and time just breezes by. You're not thinking about anything else. You can focus fully on what you're doing. You really enjoy what you're doing so much that you don't even want to take a break or go to the restroom. You're just having a really good time. You feel focused, you feel competent, you feel good about yourself. That is what flow means. When you're in flow, that's a great kind of stress. It's the kind of stress that motivates you, that feels like you're doing something, a means to an end. And I fully believe that spending as much time as possible in your life in flow is the secret to a long, healthy life. Because it's very active. It's something that keeps you wanting to stay on this earth and continue doing what gives you meaning. And yet it also is very nourishing. It doesn't feel exhausting to you. It doesn't feel like it's taking from you. It doesn't feel effortful. It's something that you genuinely enjoy doing. So let me give you my answers for some examples. My favorite class in school was by far English. In like middle, high school, always English, always my favorite thing, especially any like writing related exercises, loved that. And then in college, I think my favorite class was probably creative writing. I took as many creative writing classes as they would take me before they said, we have to prioritize the people who are majoring in this. If I'm imagining that I'm 10 years old and I'm at my grandparents' house in a small town with no internet and no TV, I don't have to imagine very hard because that was actually my reality in Romania every summer of my childhood. I used to write all the time. We would stay there for weeks at a time and I would just have a notebook and I would fill it with stories and drawings and mostly just write. You know, like we had no Wi-Fi. We had to go to the internet cafe for me to check up on my webkins. For a while, like until I want to say around like 8 or 9 years old, we didn't even have a bathroom. We had an outhouse. So like, as you can imagine, I had to get really creative at coming up with things to do. As for what I would do on a fun, special day, all I gotta do is just be in front of a blank piece of paper. Leave me a blank notebook and don't worry, I'll take care of it. What task doesn't feel like work to me is writing. You guessed it. I know there's a theme emerging here, and I feel completely in flow when I'm writing. Are you getting the picture that's forming? Although I got my doctorate in clinical psychology, writing always has and always will be what the Japanese call my ikigai, the reason that I'm on this earth, something that I love, that other people appreciate that I do, and that somehow betters society or betters other people's lives. Writing always has been and always will be my destiny. So one comment that I want to address that I got on that last video that I made about picking a career, something along the lines of, I don't dream of labor. There is no dream job for me. It's just a means to an end, that end being able to afford to make a living. I feel like comments like that fundamentally misunderstand what labor means or what a job or a career means. Labor is not just working for someone else, working for a company, being employed by someone. Labor can be creative, it can be energizing, it can be fun, you can be your own boss, you can absolutely do what you love in a way where you're just monetizing that thing. It should make you excited every day. If you say, I don't dream of labor, that's because you're not thinking about the right kind of labor. Labor is what gives us meaning in life. We can't just wander aimlessly. This is why we see so many people in retirement experiencing depression and meaninglessness in their life, because they lost that thing that they're working towards. Everyone needs something that they're working towards. It should feel like play, not like work. So maybe labor is kind of a misnomer for it. If your idea of a good life is just traveling places, living carefree, guess what? You can do that. You can be a travel blogger or a travel vlogger or a hotel critic. If your idea of a good life is just sitting around, chatting with people, bonding with them, hanging out, there are jobs for that as well. There are tons of people that successfully have podcasts, tons of people that unsuccessfully do it as well, but that's beside the point. You could maybe be a salesperson. That's engaging those same skills that you enjoy. Or working in some sort of team setting for a company where you're brainstorming creative ideas together and just really bonding with each other. If your idea of a good life is being out in nature and hiking, you could just be a park ranger. You could work on a farm. You can think outside the box, not just a 9 to 5 in a cubicle. That's not all that labor means. Labor can mean whatever feels like play to you. Now, I understand that there are going to be pros and cons to everything. So if you're expecting whatever career you choose to be all sunshine and roses and nothing ever annoying, that doesn't exist. Of course, nothing in life is like that. Even though I love writing novels, I do really hate the editing process. I hate the manuscript formatting. I don't love that stuff, but it's worth it for me. If you have found your ikigai, the pros will far outweigh the cons. Whereas if you're in the wrong job, the cons make you miserable and the pros feel like it's just not worth it. A lot of people are worried about outliving their retirement funds. There's this big crisis in America, especially, I don't know how other countries are, of people feeling like Social Security is not going to last as long as we need it to, and people don't have enough savings for retirement because of a bunch of different reasons why the economy is the way it is. And when people talk about that fear of outliving their money, I don't really worry about that because I don't think I'm ever going to retire in that sense of the word. I'm never going to stop writing. What you dream of doing when you're retired is probably what actually should be your career. Like for me, when I think about what would I love to do at 70 years old if I'm set and I can just lean back, what I would do is I would write, think about what would you like to do once you're retired, and that is your answer for what you should do for work. Next, let's troubleshoot some possible issues that might come up for you when you do this exercise. But first, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Akiflow. If part of the reason why your professional life is stressing you out is because you're having trouble staying focused on whatever tasks you have in your day-to-day life, you might really benefit from today's sponsor, Akiflow. Akiflow is a time-blocking platform that empowers you to effortlessly consolidate all your tools in one place and block off time for your tasks in your calendar. Time blocking helps you allocate specific time slots for each task or activity, and the structured approach forces you to plan your day, reducing your likelihood of procrastinating or not getting to the most important stuff. When you have a clear schedule, you're much more likely to actually follow through on your commitments. Something that I realized when I was reflecting on my work schedule as somebody that is completely self-employed, I realized that I wasn't prioritizing the stuff that was genuinely most important to me. Like I keep talking about, writing is the thing that is most valued to me in my life. I realized that I cannot keep putting off the reason why I live. I can't keep saying, oh, I'll get to this novel after I pass my licensure exam, or I'll get to this novel after I do this course. I'll get to this novel after I submit this new mental health journal for publishing. No, you need to prioritize the things that are most important to you. So Akiflow has visual cues that remind you of your priorities. Visualizing these deadlines and responsibilities means you'll be less likely to procrastinate. Let me show you some of the features it has. So you have your calendar and you have events on the calendar, and you can drop a task straight into it or into a time slot for multiple tasks. So for instance, you can have a time slot that is for writing, and within that writing you say, write 5 pages, read them out loud, and then edit them for clarity. Akiflow also has notification features, which reminds you of a task that you need to finish up or the next task coming up. It balances structure with flexibility, so if you feel like you need to modify your schedule for some reason, you can absolutely do that. And you can easily organize your tasks into labels or tags. You also have something called the rituals button, which is where you review yesterday and prepare for today. And you also have something called the command bar, where you easily add and manage tasks with a personalized keyboard shortcut. Akiflow also allows you to set a goal for the day, which gets highlighted. It has has integrations where you can connect various apps, and you even get one-on-one free productivity coaching, which is pretty amazing. So if you're a professional looking for a simple way to stay focused on what really matters to you in your career, I definitely recommend Akiflow. Thank you to Akiflow, always a product I love promoting. All right, let's get to some troubleshooting now. If you answered the questions from the beginning of this video and you still feel like you don't have a lot of clarity, here are some issues that might come up and how to try circumventing them. One issue that I imagine might have come up for some of you is that your answers aren't consistent. So this could reflect maybe you're very early on in your career, you haven't quite figured out what you love and what you don't, and that's totally fine. All that means is you just have to get a little bit more experience with it. You have to figure out, where do I feel like the pros outweigh the cons, and where do I feel like the cons just don't make the pros worth it? You might also need to just get more specific. For instance, it might not be the same activity that's tying all of these together, but rather a specific type of activity. You know, if you said writing for one, drawing for another, performing for another, essentially what you're talking about is creating. All of these are creative activities, so maybe that is what you're most in flow doing. There are different types of activities like performing versus analyzing versus researching versus creating versus writing versus calculating numbers versus noticing patterns versus talking to people. These are just some examples. Get really deep in there, figure out, what do I like about this particular activity and why do I fantasize about doing this on a special day, and figure out what that common thread is connecting all of these. Issue number 2 that I imagine has come up for some people is you genuinely can't muster up any sort of desire, or you just kind of feel apathetic. You feel like, I don't really care about any of these things. I don't really want to do anything. What I'm starting to learn recently is that desire doesn't come out of pushing yourself towards desire. Desire arises out of nothingness, out of the stillness, out of the calm, out of meditative states. Desire will arise out of the nothingness if you just listen to it without trying to force something out of it. I go through cycles where sometimes I want things really, really badly, and then other times I don't really want anything. I don't have any major goals or wishes that I'm hoping to accomplish. That's perfectly normal. You know, that's just how nature balances itself out. Sometimes you're gonna really want something and other times you're not. What I've noticed is if you let yourself just steep in that nothingness, not force it, that's when the most creative ideas can come from. If you just allow those ideas to sort of marinate in your brain. You know, like a good sauce, you gotta give it some time. You gotta let the ingredients blend together before you do something with it. To really give you an example of what I'm talking about a year ago I got a pot of lavender for the very first time, and when winter came around, I thought that it died on me. I thought that it was never going to sprout again. I'd never had lavender before. And it turns out that all those parts that I had cut off were perfectly valuable to come back in the spring. You know, from out of something that looks so dead in the wintertime, beautiful fresh needles sprout out of it, and then eventually beautiful purple flowers. I think that's such an accurate metaphor for exactly what I'm talking about. You could feel like there's nothingness and like you're really not sure what it is that you want, but it's out of that nothingness that the desire can actually sprout. Instead of trying to force yourself, I would maybe try doing the exact opposite, which is lean into the abyss. Meditate, sit in nature, and just listen to what the nothingness and what your body is telling you. Get really in touch with what you want. Think about it like trying to intuitively eat. If you're struggling to figure out what your body or your mind or whatever is trying to signal to you, what you want, what you need, you're probably not going to figure it out by trying to force yourself. What is actually going to help you figure it out is just pressing pause, taking some time, sitting in the not knowing, letting some time pass, and eventually those signals are going to become stronger and clearer to you. You know, if you're trying to decide between an apple and a Cheeto, give it 20 minutes. And then in 20 minutes, probably your body's going to be a little bit clearer about what it actually needs. And the third issue that I foresee could come up for people, especially in this day and age, is that your idea of a good day is just sitting in bed, doing nothing, either sleeping or mindlessly scrolling on social media. Honestly, you're not going to overcome that and gain clarity on what is fulfilling to you in your life until you get some of those lifestyle habits under control, because these are essentially addictions. They are dependencies. So you're not going to gain clarity on what do I want to do with my life if you haven't first gotten into therapy, gotten blood work to see if there's an organic issue going on, started eating a balanced diet, hydrating yourself, sleeping well at night, detoxing from your phone, canceling streaming subscriptions, moving your body, making a healthy routine for yourself, like you're not going to be able to focus on these high order things if these very basic things are not met. If that was what you answered for a lot of this stuff, treat it like an addiction because that's probably what it is. You need to get healthy before you figure out what do I want to do with my life. So in summary, to find the ideal job for you, figure out what makes you feel the most in flow and then try to do that thing as much of your life as you can. In this day and age, the internet has opened up so many possibilities that weren't there 20 years ago. It's given people so much time and location freedom. You know, even to make like a YouTube channel, for instance, all you really need is like a decent phone camera. So you really have no excuse for not finding something that can help you feel in flow. And if you can't find a common thread among those questions that I asked you at the beginning of the video, just keep zooming in and out, keep figuring out what is connecting these different things. It's common among the things that I love. If you feel like you don't have any desire, just sit with that. Sit with the nothingness and let it come to you. Don't try to force it. And if you're addicted to certain unhealthy lifestyle habits, then get those in order first and then we'll talk. I hope this helped some, and thank you again to Akiflow. See you soon.